Why human diplomatic guards arrive defenseless. The galaxy's most dangerous secret. Part 1. The Unarmed Arrivals. High Observer Vel had lived for nearly 800 years. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had seen species destroy themselves in foolish wars. He had witnessed the birth of new civilizations and the death of old ones. In all that time, very few things had truly surprised him. But today, watching the human shuttle dock at the Eternal Harmony Station, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt confused. The peace talks were the most dangerous diplomatic event in recent galactic history. They had been at war with 3 other species for decades. Millions had died. Entire planets had burned. And now, finally, all sides had agreed to meet and discuss peace. Every delegation had arrived with heavy security. They brought 40 soldiers in full combat armor, carrying plasma rifles that could burn through solid metal. The tall and muscular beings with skin and 4 arms brought their elite guard unit armed with energy blades and personal shields. Even the peaceful, Vel's own people, had brought defensive drones and protective barriers. Then the humans arrived. Ambassador Park walked off the shuttle with a calm smile on his face. He was a man of average height with hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple dark suit, the kind humans wore to formal events. Behind him walked 3 guards. Vel leaned forward in his observation seat and studied them carefully. The first guard was a woman named Sara. She was small, even by human standards. Her black hair was tied back neatly. She wore a simple black uniform with no armor plates, no energy shields, and no visible weapons. Her hands were empty. The second guard was Lee. He was taller with a strong build and a face that showed no emotion. Like Sara, he wore only a black uniform. No weapons, no protection, nothing. The third guard she was young, perhaps the youngest of the 3. She walked behind the ambassador with quiet steps. Her eyes moved constantly, watching everything around her, but her hands, like the others, were completely empty. Vel turned to his assistant, a young named Pell. "Are you seeing this correctly? Are our sensors working?" Pell checked the readings twice. "Yes, High Observer, the humans carry no weapons, no hidden devices, no implants, nothing." "That is impossible," Vel said. "This is the most dangerous diplomatic meeting in 50 years. The extremists have already threatened to kill any human they see. Why would they send their ambassador with unarmed guards?" He did not have an answer, neither did anyone else. The delegation watched the humans walk past. Their leader, a large creature with sharp mandibles, clicked his jaws in what Vel recognized as laughter. "Look at them," they said to his soldiers. "The humans send children to protect their diplomat. Perhaps they do not value his life." The military commander, a massive being named, frowned at the humans. He had fought against human forces in a border dispute years ago. He had seen what humans could do in battle. This made no sense to him. "Something is wrong here," said to his aide. "Humans are not stupid, they are dangerous. Why would they come here without weapons?" His aide had no answer. Ambassador Park walked through the station as if he were taking a peaceful walk through a garden. He smiled at the other delegations. He nodded politely at the who had just insulted his guards. He showed no fear, no worry, no concern at all. Sara walked beside him. Her face was calm. Her breathing was slow and steady. She looked at the armed soldiers around her with the same expression a person might have while looking at flowers in a field. Vel watched all of this through the security monitors. He pulled up everything he knew about human diplomatic guards. The information was strange and disturbing. In 300 years of galactic contact, no human diplomatic guard had ever lost a protected person. Not once. Human ambassadors had been targeted by assassins, terrorists, and enemy soldiers. They had faced attacks from every species in the galaxy, and every single time the humans had survived. But that was not the strange part. The strange part was that human guards almost never killed anyone. They stopped attacks, prevented violence, and protected their ambassadors. But they rarely used deadly force. It was as if they knew exactly how to stop every threat without causing death. How was this possible? Vel looked at Sora's face on the monitor. She was smiling slightly as she walked. She looked relaxed, almost peaceful. She looked like a woman who knew something that everyone else did not. The peace talks began that evening. All the delegations gathered in the Great Council Chamber, a huge room with high ceilings and floating platforms for each species. Armed guards stood everywhere. Weapons were pointed in all directions. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. And in the middle of it all, Ambassador Park sat calmly with his 3 unarmed guards behind him. The ambassador, a creature named, spoke first. "We are here to discuss peace, but let me be clear. There are those among my people who do not want peace. They want war, they want revenge, and they are here on this station waiting for a chance to strike." It was a threat, barely hidden behind diplomatic words. Ambassador Park simply nodded. "I understand, we are prepared for anything." Made a clicking sound that might have been amusement. "Are you? Your guards carry no weapons, they have no armor. What are you prepared for, human?" Park smiled that calm smile again. "Everything." The talks continued for hours. Arguments went back and forth. Old wounds were discussed. New terms were proposed and rejected. Through it all, the 3 human guards stood perfectly still behind their ambassador. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply watched. Vel could not stop looking at them. There was something in their eyes, something he could not name. It was not arrogance. It was not pride. It was something else entirely. It was certainty. They were certain they would succeed. They were certain their ambassador would survive. They had no doubt, no fear, no worry at all. As the evening session ended, Vel made a decision. He would find out the truth about human guards. He would discover their secret. He would understand why they came to dangerous places with empty hands and calm smiles. He did not know that the answer would change everything he understood about humanity. He did not know that somewhere on the station, an assassin was already preparing to strike. And he did not know that, in just a few hours, he would witness something that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his long life. The human guards smiled their calm smiles and said nothing. They were ready. Why human diplomatic guards arrived defenseless, the galaxy's most dangerous secret. Part 2, the first test. The ceremonial feast was a tradition older than most civilizations in the galaxy. When enemies came together to discuss peace, they shared food. It was a symbol of trust, a sign that for one evening at least, no blood would be spilled. The great dining hall of the Eternal Harmony Station was filled with delegations from every species at the peace talks. Long tables held strange foods from a dozen worlds. Lights floated in the air like tiny stars. Music played softly in the background. Ambassador Park sat at the human table with his 3 guards standing behind him. He ate slowly, tasting the different foods with genuine interest. He laughed at jokes. He shared stories about Earth. He seemed like a man at a friendly dinner party, not a man surrounded by enemies who wanted him dead. High Observer Vel watched from across the room. He had positioned himself where he could see the human delegation clearly. He was still trying to understand these strange creatures and their even stranger guards. Sora stood directly behind the ambassador. Her eyes moved constantly, looking at faces, hands, movements, but her body remained relaxed. Her breathing was slow and calm. Lee stood to her left. He was watching the service staff, the beings who brought food and drinks to the tables. His face showed nothing, but his attention was absolute. Stood to the right. She was watching the other guards in the room, the armed soldiers of other delegations. She smiled slightly, as if she found something amusing. The feast continued for 2 hours. Conversations flowed. Old enemies made careful small talk. The tension in the room began to ease just a little. Then everything changed. A service worker, one of the beings who carried trays of food, moved toward the human table. He was smaller than the soldiers but still in form. He carried a tray of drinks, moving smoothly between tables. No one paid attention to him. Service workers were invisible at such events. They were background, unimportant, beneath notice. But Lee turned his head slightly. His eyes locked onto the server. Something in his posture changed, a tiny shift that no one else noticed. Sora felt it. She did not look at, but she was suddenly more alert. Her weight shifted to the balls of her feet. Moved one step closer to Ambassador Park. The server reached into his sleeve. In that sleeve was hidden a molecular blade, a weapon so sharp it could cut through starship armor. He had planned this for months. He had sacrificed everything for this moment. He would kill the human ambassador and become a hero to his people. He pulled the blade free and lunged. What happened next became legend across the galaxy. To the alien observers in the room, it looked like magic. One moment, the assassin was moving toward Ambassador Park with deadly speed. The next moment, he was on the ground, screaming in pain, his wrist bent at an impossible angle. Lee stood over him. He had moved so fast that most eyes had not seen him move at all. He had simply been in one place, and then he was in another. The molecular blade lay on the floor, never having touched anyone. Vel stared at his recording device. He played the moment back at 1/10th speed, then 100th speed. Even then, his movement was almost too fast to see. But what Vel saw in that slowed recording disturbed him more than the speed. Had started moving before the assassin drew his weapon. Not at the same time, before, by nearly half a second. That was impossible. There was no way he could have known what the assassin was going to do. They had shown no signs, made no obvious preparations. He had been perfectly disguised, perfectly hidden. Yet had known. The room erupted into chaos. Soldiers rushed toward the scene. Guards drew their weapons. Shouting filled the air. Through it all, Ambassador Park continued eating his meal. Sora had not moved from her position, remained exactly where she had been, only had acted, and now he stepped back into his place as if nothing unusual had happened. The ambassador pushed through the crowd. He looked at the assassin on the ground, then at the human guards, then at Ambassador Park. How did your guard know? Park set down his eating utensils and wiped his mouth with a cloth. Know what? The attack. The assassin gave no warning. He was perfect. How did your guard know? Park looked back at Lee. The guard's face was calm. His breathing was normal. Vel checked the biometric readings from the room's sensors. His heart rate was 58 beats per minute. He was as relaxed as if he had just woken from a nap. My guards are well trained, Park said simply. That was not an answer. Everyone knew it was not an answer, but Park offered nothing more. The assassin was taken away by station security. The feast ended early, with all delegations returning to their quarters, but no one could stop talking about what they had seen. In the section, Commander ran analysis after analysis on the recording of the incident. The human moved before the threat was visible, he told his officers. He reacted to something we cannot detect. Either he has sensors beyond our understanding, or, he stopped, unwilling to finish the thought. Or what, Commander? His aide asked. Or humans can see the future. It was a ridiculous idea. Precognition was a myth, a story told to children. No species in the galaxy had ever developed true ability to see future events. And yet, how else could the human guard have known? In the section, High Observer Vel sat alone in his quarters, studying the data. He played the recording over and over. He analyzed every moment, every movement, every tiny detail. And he found something. The assassin had been nervous. Of course he had been nervous, he was about to try to kill someone. But his nervousness had shown in small ways. His breathing had been slightly fast. His body temperature had been slightly elevated. His movements had been slightly too controlled, as if he was thinking about every step. To Vel's eyes, these signs were invisible. Even his most advanced sensors had not flagged them as important. But Lee had been watching the assassin for almost 3 minutes before the attack. His eyes had tracked from the moment he entered the dining hall. Had seen something that told him this particular service worker was different from all the others, something that marked him as a threat. What could humans see that other species could not? Vel pulled up every record he could find about human biology, human evolution, human history. He read about Earth, that terrifying death world where humans had evolved. He read about predators and prey, about survival and adaptation. And slowly, a picture began to form. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest, the toughest, or the most deadly. But they had survived on a planet that killed most things that lived there. They had survived not by being powerful, but by being aware. They could read other creatures. They could sense danger. They had evolved to detect threats before those threats became obvious. It was not magic. It was not seeing the future. It was something far more interesting. Humans could read intention. Vel sat back in his chair, his old heart beating fast. If he was right, if humans could truly sense when someone meant to cause harm, then they were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. A species that could not be surprised, could not be caught off guard, could not be attacked without warning. That was not just dangerous. That was terrifying. In the human quarters, Sara stood by a window, looking out at the stars. Ambassador Park approached her quietly. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Fine, sir," she said. "Handled it well." "Yes, he did." Park paused. "Though we'll try again, they have to. Their extremist faction will not stop after one failure." Sara nodded. "I know, we all felt it at dinner. There are more of them on the station. They're planning something bigger." "Can you stop it?" Sora turned to look at her ambassador. Her eyes were calm, certain, absolutely confident. "Yes, sir, we can." Park smiled and returned to his quarters to sleep. Outside, the galaxy buzzed with rumors and questions. Inside, 3 unarmed humans prepared for whatever would come next. They had no weapons, no armor, no shields. They did not need them. Why human diplomatic guards arrived defenseless, the galaxy's most dangerous secret. Part 3. The galaxy's whispered theories. News of the assassination attempt spread across the galaxy within hours. Every intelligence agency, every military command, every government office was talking about the same thing. How had an unarmed human guard stopped an assassin before the assassin even moved? On 100 worlds, in 1,000 secret rooms, the most powerful minds in the galaxy tried to find the answer. In the home system, Military Intelligence Command held an emergency meeting. General, the oldest and most experienced of their strategists, stood before a room of analysts and officers. "Play the recording again," he ordered. They had watched it 50 times already. They would watch it 50 more. The image showed the dining hall from above. The assassin moved through the crowd. The human guard stood still. Then, in a single frame, was moving. 2 frames later, the assassin was on the ground. "Stop there," said. "Back 5 frames." They backed up the recording, pointed its eyes. "Look at his pupils. They dilated here before the assassin reached for his weapon. His body began moving here while the assassin's hand was still at his side. The human knew what was going to happen before it happened." A young analyst spoke up. "Perhaps the assassin made some small movement we cannot see, a signal of intention." "We have analyzed every pixel of this recording," said. "The assassin gave no physical signals. His heart rate was elevated, but that was hidden beneath his clothing. His breathing was slightly irregular, but that was too subtle for even our best sensors to flag as important. Then Hao was silent for a long moment. We believe humans may have hidden cybernetic implants, sensors built into their nervous systems, invisible to our scans, illegal technology that they have kept secret from the galactic community. The room nodded. This made sense. Humans were known for their technology. They were creative, inventive, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Hidden implants were a reasonable explanation. But deep down was not sure. He had fought humans before. He had seen them do impossible things. And something about their guards felt different from technology. It felt older, more natural. He pushed the doubt away and continued the briefing. Across the galaxy, in the vast hive networks of their analysts reached a different conclusion. The shared consciousness through a complex system of chemical and electromagnetic signals. They could communicate without speaking, share thoughts across vast distances, coordinate millions of individuals as one mind. They knew what it looked like when beings communicated without words. And they believed they saw something similar in the human guards. The three humans are connected, the hive analyst reported to the central mind. They do not speak, but they act as one. When the guard moved, the other two adjusted their positions instantly. They knew what he was going to do. Telepathy, the central mind asked. Something like it. We believe humans have developed psionic abilities that they have hidden from the galaxy. They can share thoughts, sense emotions, perhaps even predict actions. This theory spread quickly through the networks. Humans were psychic. Humans could read minds. This was why they did not need weapons. They already knew what you were thinking. It was a frightening idea. They had always believed they were alone in their ability to share consciousness. If humans could do the same thing, but in a different way, it changed everything. But the oldest species at the peace talks knew something that both the and did not. High Observer Vel sat in the archives of the Eternal Harmony Station. Around him floated holographic records, ancient documents, sealed files. He was looking for something that he was not supposed to find. 300 years ago, when humans first made contact with the galaxy, they had been there. They had been watching human space for centuries, studying this strange species that had risen so quickly on their dangerous world. The first official contact had been a disaster. A human colony ship had suffered engine failure and crashed on an observation world. 200 humans had survived the crash, stranded on an alien planet with no weapons and no way to call for help. The planet was not friendly. Native predators, large and deadly, had immediately begun hunting the humans. The observers had expected a massacre. What they witnessed instead had shocked them so deeply that the records were sealed by galactic treaty. Vel found the sealed file. He used his authority as High Observer to break the lock. The records opened before him, and he began to read. The human survivors had been attacked on the first night. 17 predators, each larger than 3 humans combined, had surrounded their camp. The humans had no weapons, only basic survival tools from the crash. 27 humans had fought the predators. 17 predators had died. Only 3 humans were killed. But that was not the disturbing part. The observers had recorded everything. They had interviewed the human survivors afterward, and the humans had said something that they had never forgotten. A woman named a schoolteacher with no combat training had killed 2 predators with her bare hands. When asked how she had done it, she had smiled and said, "We could feel them hunting us, so we hunted them first." Feel them hunting. The observers had questioned her further. What did she mean by feel? How could she sense the predators? Had struggled to explain. It is like pressure. When something wants to hurt you, you can feel it. Like the air gets heavy around you, like something is watching you. We have always felt it. I thought everyone could. They could not. No other species in the galaxy had ever reported such an ability. They had tested many beings over many centuries. None of them could sense danger the way humans described. But humans had evolved on Earth. Vel pulled up the records of Earth, that terrifying planet that had somehow produced intelligent life. The data was overwhelming. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, mass extinctions, predators everywhere hunting everything. Earth was not a planet. Earth was a testing ground. Only the most aware, the most sensitive, the most alert creatures could survive there. And humans were the champions of that brutal competition. They had evolved to sense danger because those who could not sense danger had died. For millions of years, humans who could feel the predator in the grass survived to have children. Humans who could not feel the predator became food. It was not telepathy. It was not psychic powers. It was something much more simple and much more terrifying. Humans could sense intention. When another creature decided to attack, to harm, to kill, that decision created tiny changes. Muscle tension, chemical releases, electromagnetic shifts, heat changes, breathing patterns. 1,000 small signals that most species could not detect. But humans could. Their brains had evolved to process all of these signals together, to combine them into a single feeling. Danger, threat, attack coming. It happened below conscious thought. A human would simply feel that something was wrong, that someone wanted to hurt them. They would not know how they knew. They would simply know. Vel sat back in his chair, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. This was why human guards carried no weapons. They did not need weapons because they could not be surprised. They would always know when an attack was coming. They would always be ready. And if they could sense when danger was near, they could also sense when it was not. They could move through a battlefield, dodging attacks that had not yet been launched. They could walk through crowds of enemies and never be touched. They were not psychic. They were perfectly evolved. Vel closed the records and sat in silence. He now understood why his ancestors had sealed these files. If the galaxy knew what humans truly were, there would be panic, fear, perhaps even war. But the secret could not stay hidden forever. The incident at the peace talks had raised too many questions. Too many people were looking for answers. And somewhere on the station, High Observer Vel knew they were planning another attack. A bigger attack. They would try again to kill the human ambassador. They would fail. They had no idea what they were really fighting against. Vel closed his eyes and wondered if he should warn them. Then he remembered what humans did to those who threatened their people, and he decided to stay silent. Let them learn the truth the hard way. Everyone else had. Why human diplomatic guards arrived defenseless. The galaxy's most dangerous secret. Part 4: The Truth Beneath. It was midnight on the Eternal Harmony Station. The corridors were empty and quiet. Most of the diplomatic delegations had gone to sleep, exhausted from another day of difficult negotiations. Sora sat alone in her small room. The lights were dim, her eyes were closed, her breathing was slow and deep. She was listening. Not with her ears. Ears were for sounds, for voices, for the obvious things that anyone could hear. Sora was listening with something older, something that had no name in any alien language. She called it the quiet sense. Her teachers had called it threat resonance. Scientists back on Earth had tried to measure it, study it, understand it. They had found pieces of the answer, but never the whole truth. The whole truth was this: humans had learned to hear the universe. Every living thing made noise. Not sound, but a different kind of noise. Electrical signals in the brain, chemical changes in the blood, tension in the muscles, heat rising from the skin. Every creature broadcast its intentions to the universe in 1,000 tiny ways. Most species could not hear this noise. Their brains had evolved for other things. They saw colors that humans could not see. They smelled chemicals that humans could not detect. They heard sounds beyond human hearing. But they were deaf to intention, blind to danger. They could not feel when something wanted to hurt them. Humans could. Sora sat in the dark and let her quiet sense expand outward. She felt the station around her like ripples in water. Every heartbeat was a pulse. Every breath was a wave. Every mind was a spark of light in the darkness. She felt Lee in the next room, awake and alert. His mind was calm, focused, watching. He was always watching. She felt down the corridor, asleep but still somehow aware. Even in sleep, his quiet sense never fully turned off. She would wake instantly if danger came near. She felt Ambassador Park in his quarters, sleeping peacefully. His trust in his guards was absolute. He knew they would protect him. He had never doubted it for a moment. And beyond the human quarters, Sora felt the others. The guards were nervous. They had seen what did at the feast and they were afraid. Their fear tasted like copper and cold wind. They gripped their weapons tightly, not realizing that weapons would not help them against what humans could do. They were curious. Their minds hummed with questions, with theories, with old memories of things they had seen long ago. One of them, the one called Vel, was especially intense. He was close to understanding. Sora could feel his thoughts circling the truth like a bird circling prey. And Sora opened her eyes. Her heart rate stayed steady, but her attention sharpened to a point. They were planning something. She could feel it the way you could feel a storm coming before the clouds appeared. There was a gathering of intention, a building of hostile purpose. 30 minds, maybe more, all focused on the same goal, all preparing for violence. They were going to attack, soon, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps sooner. Sora stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned cold and eternal. She thought about Earth, the world she had left behind. She thought about the long history that had made her people what they were. Humans had not always known about their quiet sense. For most of their history, they had not understood it. They had called it intuition, gut feeling, sixth sense. They had dismissed it as superstition, as imagination, as nothing important. Then they had met the galaxy. The first contact with aliens had been a shock. Humans had expected intelligent beings to be similar to themselves. Instead, they had found creatures that were completely different. Creatures that could not read body language, could not sense emotion, could not tell when someone was lying. At first, humans had thought the aliens were strange. Then they had realized the truth. Humans were the strange ones. Humans had abilities that no other species possessed. The Terran Science Council had spent 50 years studying threat resonance. They had mapped the brain regions involved, measured the signals that humans could detect, calculated the range and accuracy of the quiet sense. What they found was remarkable. Every human had the ability. It was built into their DNA, a gift from millions of years of evolution on a deadly world. But like any ability, it could be trained. It could be strengthened. It could be focused. The Diplomatic Guard program had been created to develop this potential. Young humans with strong natural ability were identified and trained for years. They learned to use their quiet sense consciously, to control it, to expand it. They became human weapons, not through technology or modification, but through pure evolved potential. Sora had trained for 12 years. She could sense hostility from across a crowded room. She could feel the moment when someone decided to attack, the tiny shift from thinking to doing. She could read a creature's intentions from its heartbeat, its breathing, its posture. And she could move. When her quiet sense screamed danger, her body reacted before her conscious mind could process the information. It was like breathing. It was like blinking. It was automatic, instant, perfect. This was why human guards carried no weapons. A weapon was a tool. It had to be drawn, aimed, fired. It required thought, decision, action. All of that took time. But threat resonance was faster than thought. It moved at the speed of instinct, of reflex, of pure biological programming. By the time an enemy decided to attack, a human guard was already responding. Weapons would only slow them down. Sora thought about her first teacher, master instructor. He was an old man now, retired to a quiet life on Earth, but his words still echoed in her mind. Weapons are a message, he had told her on the first day of training. When you carry a weapon, you tell everyone that you are prepared to fight. You admit that violence might be necessary. You show that you are worried, afraid, uncertain. He had smiled, that calm smile that all guards learn to wear. But empty hands say something different. They say that you are not prepared to fight. They say that violence will not be necessary. They say that you have already won and the enemy does not know it yet. Sora had not understood then. She understood now. She turned away from the window and walked to the Dorif's room. She knocked once, softly. He opened immediately. He had known she was coming. "You feel it too," she said. It was not a question, nodded. 30 or more, he said. "Armed and angry, they will come in force." "When?" "Soon, tomorrow maybe. They are gathering their courage." Sora thought about this. 30 armed soldiers against 3 unarmed guards. The odds seemed impossible. Any other species would be preparing to die. But Sora was not worried. She had faced worse odds before. All 3 of them had. "Should we tell the ambassador?" asked. Sora considered. Ambassador Park knew what his guards could do. He had chosen them specifically, had requested the best. He trusted them completely. "No," she said. "Let him sleep. He has difficult negotiations tomorrow. He needs his rest." Nodded, he understood. "I will take first watch," Sora said. "Wake in 4 hours. I want everyone fresh when they come." "You are sure they will come?" Sora smiled. It was that calm smile, the one that confused and terrified aliens across the galaxy. "They have already decided," she said. "They just do not know it yet, but I do." She returned to her room and resumed her meditation. Around her, the station pulsed with life and intention. She felt every heartbeat, every thought, every spark of violence waiting to be born. Let them come. She would be ready. All humans would always be ready. It was what they were born to do. Why human diplomatic guards arrived defenseless, the galaxy's most dangerous secret. Part 5: The Storm Breaks. The attack came on the final day of negotiations. Dawn had barely touched the Eternal Harmony station when Sora felt the shift. The gathering storm of hostile intentions that she had sensed for days suddenly focused into a single, sharp point. They were coming. She was on her feet before her conscious mind finished processing the information. Her body knew what to do. It always knew. And now, she did not need to say more. They had felt it too. Within seconds, all 3 guards were moving toward Ambassador Park's quarters. Park was awake, reviewing his notes for the day's negotiations. He looked up as his guards entered. He saw their faces, calm but alert, and he understood immediately. "How long?" he asked. "Minutes," Sora said. "Maybe less. They are moving through the maintenance corridors. 32 hostiles armed with plasma rifles and energy blades. They will hit the diplomatic wing from 3 directions." Park nodded and closed his documents. "What do you need from me?" "Stay behind us. When we move with us, trust us." Park smiled slightly. "I always have." They left his quarters and moved into the corridor. The diplomatic wing was quiet. Other delegations were still in their rooms, unaware of what was coming. Sora could feel them, little sparks of life going about their morning routines. She could also feel the approaching danger. It was like a dark wave rolling toward them, growing larger and more intense with every passing second. 32 minds focused on violence, on death, on ending the human presence at these peace talks forever. They thought they were about to win. They had no idea what they were about to lose. The first soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor. They wore full combat armor, black and gleaming. Their plasma rifles were raised and ready. Behind their helmets, their compound eyes burned with hatred. Their commander stepped forward. He was larger than the others, decorated with symbols of rank. "Human ambassador," he called out, "you will come with us. Your guards will not interfere. Resistance means death." Sara stepped forward. She was small, unarmed, wearing only her simple black uniform. She should have looked helpless. She should have looked afraid. Instead, she smiled. "No," she said, "you will put down your weapons and surrender, or you will learn why humans need no weapons." The commander made a clicking sound that was probably laughter. 3 unarmed humans against 32 soldiers. You are insane. "Perhaps," Sora said, "but I have seen how this ends, have you?" Before the commander could answer, his soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts screamed down the corridor, bright and deadly. Each one could burn through metal, through flesh, through bone. A single hit would kill a human instantly. None of them hit anything. Sora moved. Not like a person moves, but like water flows, like wind blows, like light bends around a star. She was in the path of the plasma fire, and then she was not. The bolts passed through the space where she had been, burning the wall behind her. She had not dodged the shots. She had moved before the shots were fired. She had felt the intention in each soldier's mind, known exactly where they would aim, and simply not been there. And moved with her, a perfect dance of 3 bodies flowing through a storm of plasma fire. They covered Ambassador Park without words, without signals. They did not need to communicate. Their quiet sense connected them, let them feel each other's intentions as clearly as their enemies. They kept firing. They could not understand what was happening. Their targets were right there, right in front of them, but nothing they did could touch them. Then the humans reached the soldiers. Sara was the first to make contact. She flowed past a plasma bolt, stepped inside a soldier's guard and touched his arm. Just touched it. But her touch landed exactly on the nerve cluster that controlled his grip. His rifle fell from suddenly numb fingers. A twist, a turn, and the soldier was on the ground with his arm locked in a joint hold. Not broken, not damaged, simply immobilized. Was faster. He moved through the soldiers like a ghost, his hands finding pressure points, nerve clusters, vulnerable joints. Each touch was precise, perfect, exactly enough to disable without killing. Soldiers collapsed around him, conscious but unable to move. Stayed close to the ambassador. She did not attack. She simply positioned herself perfectly, always between Park and danger, always exactly where she needed to be. Plasma bolts that were aimed at the ambassador missed because had gently redirected his movement a heartbeat before. Soldiers who lunged toward him found empty air because she had guided him around them. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted 47 seconds. When it was over, 32 soldiers lay on the ground. None of them were dead. Most were not even seriously injured. They were simply unable to move, their nervous systems disrupted by precise, targeted touches. The commander was the last to fall. Sara stood over him, still wearing that calm smile. "I told you," she said. "I saw how this ended." The commander's compound eyes were wide with something that might have been fear or might have been awe. "What are you?" he whispered. Sara did not answer. She did not need to. Station security arrived minutes later, along with representatives from every delegation at the peace talks. They found the corridor exactly as the humans had left it. 32 disabled soldiers, 3 unarmed guards, 1 ambassador straightening his coat. High Observer Vel pushed through the crowd. He had watched the entire battle through the security monitors. He had seen things that he would never forget. Things that confirmed every theory he had developed over the past days. The commander stood frozen at the edge of the scene. He had fought humans before. He thought he understood their capabilities. He understood nothing. Ambassador Park looked at the gathered crowd. His expression was pleasant, professional, as if 32 soldiers had not just tried to kill him, as if his guards had not just defeated them with empty hands. "Shall we continue negotiations?" he asked. No one had an answer. The peace talks concluded that afternoon. The delegation, shocked by the failure of their extremist faction, agreed to terms they had rejected for decades. The other delegations watched the humans with new eyes, nervous eyes, respectful eyes. That evening, as the human shuttle prepared to depart, High Observer Vel approached Ambassador Park. "I must know," the old said. "My people have suspected for centuries, but we never confirmed. What you did today, your guards, they knew everything before it happened. They felt every attack before it was launched. They responded before the enemy decided to act." Park looked at him with kind eyes. "Yes." How is this possible?" Park glanced back at his guards. Sara Lee and stood in their usual positions, hands empty, faces calm. They looked like ordinary humans, unremarkable, harmless. But Vel knew better now. He would never forget what he had seen. "Earth is a dangerous place," Park said. "It has always been dangerous. Our ancestors survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most aware. Those who could not sense danger died. Those who could sense it survived and passed that ability to their children. And over millions of years, we became something new, something that can hear the galaxy's intentions, something that cannot be surprised, cannot be ambushed, cannot be attacked without warning." Vel was silent for a long moment. "The other species do not know this." "No, and we prefer to keep it that way. Fear makes people do foolish things. If the galaxy knew what humans could truly do, they might become afraid. They might try to destroy us before we became too powerful." "Is that why your guards carry no weapons? To hide your true capabilities?" Park smiled. "Partly, but also because weapons are unnecessary. Why carry a tool you will never need?" He turned and walked toward his shuttle. His guards followed, silent as shadows. Vel watched them go. He thought about the sealed records in the archives. He thought about the truth that his people had hidden for 300 years. The galaxy believed humans were dangerous because of their technology, their weapons, their warships. They were wrong. Humans were dangerous because they had evolved on a death world that rewarded awareness above all else. They had become attuned to hostility itself. They could feel the moment when a creature decided to cause harm, and they could respond before that harm was done. They were the galaxy's perfect guardians, or its perfect predators. It depended entirely on how you treated them. Vel shook his head and returned to his quarters. He had much to think about. The human shuttle departed into the stars. Sora stood at a window, watching the station grow smaller behind them. "Do you think he understood?" asked. "Yes," Sora said. "He understood. He will keep our secret." "How do you know?" Sora smiled. "I felt it. He means us no harm. None of them do now. They have seen what we can do. They will not threaten us again." She turned away from the window and closed her eyes. The stars burned on, cold and eternal. And humanity continued its journey through a galaxy that was only just beginning to understand what it had awakened.